Hello, I'm Esther Gidhui-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Russia rebrands Wagner Group as an expeditionary corps under the control of Moscow's military intelligence arm. African countries meet in Kenya for security training aimed at building readiness and cooperation to counter terrorist groups in East Africa. And multi-award-winning reggae dancehall artist Livingstone Etse Satekla talks about his soaring career and special performance in Washington, D.C. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Russia's election was marred on Friday by a series of disruptions, including dye being poured into ballot boxes, a Molotov cocktail thrown at a polling station in President Vladimir Putin's hometown, and reported cyber attacks. Millions of Russians cast their ballots across the country's 11 time zones at the start of a three-day election that is almost certain to hand Putin 6 more years at the helm of the world's largest country by territory. This at a time when, according to a report from Britain's Royal United Service Institute, Russia has now rebranded Wagner as an expeditionary corps under the control of Moscow's military intelligence arm, and the force is offering a regime survival package to autocratic regimes in Africa. Henry Ridgewell has more.
Russia's Wagner paramilitary group was active in several African countries, including Libya, where its fighters aided General Khalifa Haftar in return for access to Libyan oil and gas. They were frequently accused of committing human rights abuses. In June last year, Wagner's chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, led a failed mutiny against Moscow, and the group was disbanded. Prigozhin died in a plane crash 2 months later. That left a dilemma for the Kremlin: what to do about Wagner's operations in Africa.
After that so-called mutiny, the decision was made it would be better to have it more, in-house rather than outsourced.
According to an analysis by Britain's Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, Moscow has rebranded the Wagner Group as the Expeditionary Corps of Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, with a target of recruiting a further 40,000 troops to serve in the force. Its aim is to secure Russian interests overseas, including access to mineral resources, while also reducing Moscow's vulnerability to Western sanctions, according to the report.
What they're doing is just expand their colonialism in the global South countries. And right now they're very much focused on African countries, but they have plans for Latin America as well, some Asian countries. They will also have, political technologists, media experts, intelligence officers who specialized in political warfare, economic operations. So pretty much everything to be able not only to infiltrate that global South countries, but also to establish pro-Russian regimes there.
Moscow is actively marketing that offer to African governments.
They sell this conception as so-called regime survival package.
The RUSI report says Russia helped to foment military coups in parts of Africa and is now seeking to displace Western influence. France and other European nations sent troops to Mali in 2013 to help fight an Islamist insurgency. But they were withdrawn in 2022 after a military coup. A UN peacekeeping force also pulled out last year. Several hundred Russian-backed fighters are now in Mali supporting the junta. Moscow has also backed military governments in Niger and Burkina Faso. Speaking Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin denied any plan to oust Western influence from the region.
To be honest, overall, we do not have national tasks at the Russian state level there. We're just being friends with them, that's all.
The RISI report disputes that assertion and says that Russia's new expeditionary corps shows Moscow has finally decided to explicitly challenge the international system. Henry Ridgewell, VOA News, London.
Afro Barometer, a Pan-African non-partisan survey research network, recently conducted surveys in 39 African countries. The surveys relieved that many are losing faith in elections as the best method for choosing their leaders. For more insight, VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke to Boniface Dulani, Director of Surveys at Afro Barometer offices in Zomba, Malawi.
There has been, I think, a feeling out there that Africans are becoming disillusioned with democracy and are willing to discard democracy and embrace non-democratic alternatives. And we've seen the military coups in Niger, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, in Gabon, among some of the examples. And we've actually seen people on the streets celebrating the ouster of democratically elected governments. And these few anecdotal cases, and I'll say anecdotal, are usually used to infer that, well, maybe we are seeing a pushback against democracy. I should say based on the findings from our surveys, again, across this continent, support for democracy remains very strong. I think when in our most recent surveys, for example, almost 75% of citizens in again about 39 or 40 countries expressed preference for democracy over any other forms of government. And we do ask them also whether they would reject military rule, reject one-party rule, or reject dictatorships where we have one person really governing. Again, we find a strong rejection of these modes of government. Granted, there are a few, a small minority, including the youth, who are willing to embrace alternatives to democracy.
Granted, there is democracy in Africa and a lot of people embrace democracy. But then we also have situations whereby we have these leaders who have come through elections but then overstayed their welcome. When you look at data coming from those countries, the quality of democracy tends to fizzle out. They become autocrats in a sense that they start treating people differently. What do your surveys tell you about the quality of democracy?
Our survey data shows that demand for democracy remains very, very strong. We've seen it declines, yes, over the years, but still large majorities of African citizens want democracy and reject authoritarian rule. And we see this also in our surveys, where again citizens express frustration about the quality of elections, as well as the failure of these leaders really to leave office. But I should say that while we have so many such cases with examples of the Musevens, the Paul Kagames of the world, we are also beginning to see a new trend. Ghana, for example, there's been a frequent rotation of the ruling parties, so much that it's become, basically a pattern that a party comes to power for 2 terms, they are almost guaranteed that they will lose the next elections. In Nigeria, there was that change, from President Goodluck Jonathan, when he lost and he agreed to leave office. In Zambia, in Malawi, there have been changes in power. So there are some positive stories, even though there are also these kind of negative stories.
That was Boniface Dulani, Director of Surveys at Afro Barometer, based in Zomba, Malawi, speaking to VOA's Paul Ndiho. The World Liberty Congress held a conference in Washington, D.C. early this week where participants urged democratic governments to take decisive action against dictatorships and stand with political prisoners and activists facing unprecedented threats. The conference represented dissidents from 60 oppressed countries. For more on the call to defend democracy, I'm joined live by Karine Kanimba Rusesabagina, spokesperson for the World Liberty Congress. Karine, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
What is your assessment of the current global democracy around the world, given your experience as a survivor of Rwanda genocide?
Well, democracy is in decline. There is, and this trend is evident in the increasing consolidation of power by dictators like Paul Kagame and President Putin, who have extended their rule to changing the constitution of presidents forever. There are crackdowns on dissent and manipulation of electoral process, imprisonments and killings of journalists who are reporting truth, and of course imprisonments and killings of political oppositions who are trying to bring about democracy. And that's why the World Liberty Congress came together. We are uniting people from around the world to fight for democracy and freedom.
Now, what do you make of the recent ruling in your home country of Rwanda, where the court found the opposition leader, Victoire Ingabire, ineligible to run in the July presidential election?
Well, this shows that there is no democracy in Rwanda. This is an undermining of the fundamental democratic principles, which include the right to participate in free and fair elections. And in fact, they've been looking for ways to stop Victoire for many years, constantly coming up with fabricated charges against her because they understand that if she ran for office, she may win. Rwanda has a majority of women, and every woman who has run for election, Diane Rwigara in 2017, was arrested along with her mother and her sister. Ingabire as well was arrested. And this continues to show that there is no space for democracy in Rwanda. There is no political space for people to participate in the governance of the country besides one individual.
Karine, I'm going to take you away from politics because it's a Women History Month. And I would like to hear your message for women around the world that tells them they matter.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would say to women around the world, remember that you are not alone. Together we can overcome adversity and challenge injustice and build a future where every woman can fulfill her potential. So to every woman and girl, stand tall, speak out, and never doubt the power of your voice. Your resilience and your strength, your actions have the power to change the world.
Thank you so much, Karine. Karine Kanimba Rusesabagina is spokesperson for the World Liberty Congress. More than 20 nations participated in joint military exercises in Kenya this month. The maneuvers aimed to build readiness and cooperation to counter terrorist groups in East Africa. VOA Bureau Chief Mariama Diallo attended one of the training sessions and has our story.
This military exercise shows what teams from 23 nations have been practicing during this year's Justified Accord training, which recently took place in Nanyuki, about 4 hours outside of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Justified Accord is the USAfrican Command's largest exercise in East Africa.
By coming here together, we've got a unique capability to build skills, build readiness, the capacity and capability of our teams, not only internationally, but unique to the region in order to combat violent extremism and those elements within our region that want to destabilize our communities and our governments.
In 2013, Kenya suffered one of its worst terror attacks when Somalia-based terrorist group Al-Shabaab bombed Nairobi's Westgate shopping mall and killed nearly 70 people.
The exercise Justified Accord between Kenya Defense Forces and U.S. military has been a very good opportunity to build cooperation and relationship, and which will ultimately give us an opportunity to deal with the common threat, which is a security threat in this region of Horn of Africa.
This was the first participation for Somali Danab Special Forces Platoon Commander Abdirahim Mohammed. The Danab Brigade is a U.S.-trained elite unit of the Somali Army that has been countering Al-Shabaab's attacks.
The biggest thing we benefit in this Justified Accord is interaction between different countries. We meet the Rwandan, we meet the Tanzanian. The good example was now we are doing today is our demonstration. So I'm the platoon leader. So my platoon consists of the 10 Somalis, 10 Tanzania, and 10 Kenyan.
Armed forces from many countries participated, including the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Rwanda, Somalia, Tanzania, and Djibouti. In this photo, members of the Djiboutian Bataillon d'Intervention Rapide received feedback from U.S. Army Captain Alex Roos, an instructor with the 2nd Security Force Assistance Brigade.
We really got to meet these different partners and learn from them. For example, we had soldiers from the Kenyan Defense Force and soldiers from Somalia. They were just a wealth of knowledge. You know, these guys are in conducting operations currently.
What took a year to plan didn't come without challenges, as one member of the Massachusetts National Guard, Lieutenant Colonel Michael McNamara, explains.
The challenges were always there, you know, getting 130 people on commercial aircrafts, moving vehicles, requesting ammunition, moving MREs, water, everything that you see down at Camp Kafaru. Those are some of the challenges that we faced.
He and others told VOA that although being on the ground presents its own set of challenges, it's been easier as they've been able to share tactics and quickly learn from each other. Mariama Jallo, VOA News, Nanyuki, Kenya.
Ugandan politician Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, says that the Oscar nomination for the movie Bobi Wine, The People's President, helped bring a global attention to his movement and to bring about democratic change in his country. Before joining politics, Wine was one of the most popular musicians in Uganda. Speaking to VOA's Jackson Vunganyi from Los Angeles, he says he transitioned into politics to advocate for the marginalized youth.
Bobi Wine, thank you so much for joining us today. You're in LA. I assume you're in LA because you were there for the Oscars. Your film, The People's President, was nominated for an Oscar. Even though you did not win, you said earlier that just being nominated by itself is a win. Tell us, what were some of your feelings when you learned that your movie had been nominated for an Oscar?
It was exciting, super exciting. Being an artist, of course, every artist's dream is to, reach Hollywood, although I was reaching not in an artistic way or in an artistic life, but it was exciting and empowering at the same time. As a matter of fact, the day the nomination was announced, we were under house arrest, but a few hours later after the announcement, the military withdrew from our house. So that's the power of film. And, being able to bring the Ugandan story about the struggle for freedom and democracy to the world stage was also such an honor for me and my team.
Yeah. Now, I know you and I have spoken over the years. I remember you, the first time I met you in clutches after having been released from detention where you were tortured. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. Can you share some of the key moments or events that led you to transition from a musician to a prominent political figure in Uganda?
First, it was not a voluntary decision. It was more of a reaction to what I personally experienced. And this is a story I've told numerous times of how I was attacked and beaten up by a security operative just because I was driving a new Cadillac Escalade. That reminded me of what other people are going through, and it made me change from just singing for fun and entertainment, but communicating and combating injustice. But that is something that grew over the years. And for about 10 years, I moved from just talking about these issues to seeking the formal platform to raise them. That's why I went and ran for MP. And one thing led to another. After I became an MP, I realized that for as long as General Museveni is in charge, even the parliament is only a rubber stamp. And that's why I challenged the general for the presidency. And the struggle continues to the present day.
How has your background in music influenced your approach to political activism?
Music and activism does not differ much. I mean, artists have been, like it was said earlier by our predecessors, that art is a reflection of life. we artists are just representatives or public spokespersons. We talk about what other people are going through. So our generation, we chose not just to talk about it, but to use that star power to influence positive change. I strongly believe that it's because of my musical prowess and my star power that I came with, having been singing about the issues that affect people. That is what drew more attention to me, and therefore giving me the opportunity to lure in especially the young people of our generation and our geography in Uganda and Africa, where we come from.
Ugandan politician Bobi Wine speaking to VOA's Jackson Vunganyi from Los Angeles. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the music of Ghanaian reggae dancehall artist Livingstone Etse Satekla. Stay with us.
A group of 12 women are recipients of this year's International Women of Courage Award. 3 of them are from Africa. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will introduce you to Agatha Atuhaire, Fatou Balde, and Rabah El Haimad, 3 women who have demonstrated remarkable courage and determination in advocating for the rights of fellow women. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
Season 4, rocking with the best. Rocking with the best. Season 4, rocking with the best.
In other news, the UN Children's Agency warned on Friday of a potential catastrophic loss of lives in Sudan as the civil war worsens hunger and called for a massive mobilization of resources. The war has killed thousands, displaced millions of people inside and outside the country, and sparked warnings of famine. Egypt is seeking to reach a deal for a ceasefire in Gaza, increase entry of aid, and to allow displaced people in the south of the enclave to move to the north. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Friday also warned against the danger of an Israeli incursion into the city of Rafah, where an estimated 1.5 million people have sought shelter next to Gaza's border with Egypt. The excitement continued at the Sunbeat Arena in Pretoria on Thursday, with Morocco's Fous di Rabat and Angola's Petro di Luanda facing off for the second time in the Kalahari Conference of the Basketball Africa League. In the opening game this season, Fous di Rabat came out on top with an 82-73 win against Petro, but on Thursday, Petro beat Fous di Rabat in a close game, 89-86. Now, Fous di Rabat and Petro di Luanda each have 2 wins in this round of play. We'll have to see how they do this weekend when the Kalahari Conference comes to an end. Multi-award-winning reggae dancehall artist Livingstone Etse Satekla, better known as Stone Boy, talks to Heather Maxwell, host of Music Time in Africa, about his soaring career and special performance in Washington, D.C. to honor Ghana's Independence Day.
Congratulations on your super growing career. I mean, you sold out a 40,000-seat stadium in Accra recently.
Yeah.
How was that?
It's a great feeling. It's a memorable day. It's a moment that actually inspires a lot of us. So that tells you that the love is huge. But I can never take that moment for granted. So I'm always working towards giving them concerts of quality that can represent Ghana better.
Tell me about your outfit here. This jacket says 1957. Your glasses. Actually, I hope that we can see your eyes.
Of course.
Oh, there he is.
Red eyes, you know, say burning fire, you know. Yeah, man.
What about your jacket?
My jacket, this is a piece made by a very lovely lady designer. She's a Ghanaian, and this speaks a lot. 1957 is actually the year that Ghana got its independence, you know, as announced, as publicized on the 6th of March by Kwame Nkrumah. So that's why I'm wearing, representing, you know, for the culture.
Yes.
And it speaks over here, it has one of his quotes. He said, I am not African because I was born in Africa, but I am African because Africa was or is born inside of me, you know, so words of Kwame Nkrumah.
When we were together in Ghana in 2019, we had a nice long conversation, and you told me about your annual festival in Ashaiman. Is that still going on?
Very much going on. It's a 10-year-old charity event that's been going on to actually change the narrative of the community where I'm from, and to grow the entertainment scene and to throw light on a lot of good things that are happening in the community and the positive stuff there be through entertainment.
You released Fifth Dimension last year, your 5th album. And also you just came straight from the Cali Vibes Festival, right?
Wicked.
What? So Los Angeles is now really showing you some big love.
Showing a lot of love.
Well, how was that?
It's amazing because it's in LA that I picked up my first award, global award, like Best International Artist Africa at the BETs in 2015. And so right from there, I've known that, bro, the side of love that I got in the street from, you know, my peoples was huge. And then from that time till now, you can just imagine I went back there, I did that, it was nice. I did the Boom Yard stage with the Kabaka Pyramid, Black Hero, my very good reggae dancer friend Sean Paul, Ching Ching was right there, Kai Kaylan there, like beautiful moments.
Yeah. So how was Rolling Cocoa?
Amazing, amazing. That's like, oh my days. Connecting to your own people, like outside of home, brings another feeling. You know, the nostalgic effects, the kind of songs that I have and perform real life songs, and they can always relate, brings memories, and you can see it in their faces that they're connecting to the message so deeply. So, I mean, I can't take those moments for granted, and as a musical messenger, I know that it's really important to be able to live, you know, as a circuit through which people can actually receive and connect. Sometimes I put you on rewind and you put me on rewind too, lady. So but we're never breaking up because it's taking us million days to be here. Big up, you don't know, you know? Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
Nice. Thank you so very much. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, you
Bless
too.
you. Yeah, man.
And that's it for this week in entertainment. Be sure to check out Heather's YouTube channel and radio show Music Time in Africa this Sunday for an extended version of this interview with Stonebwoy and more. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.